Welcome to the Aaron Harber Show. My guest today, Paul Spencer of the Clean Energy Collective. Great to have you on the show.
Nice to meet you.
All right, so tell me, what is the Clean Energy Collective?
Yeah, so the Clean Energy Collective is a company that specializes in community solar. Community solar is the concept of allowing anybody who has an electric bill to be able to get solar for free and save money. And we do that by building medium-scale solar facilities, so think 5 acres to 50 acres out in a vacant spot, and then allow anybody in the local area to be able to subscribe to panels within that facility, and they receive a credit directly on their utility bill just like they had panels on their roof, but it's much more affordable, better return, savings, has transferability, more flexibility, and they don't have to worry about anything.
All right, now when you said for free, they don't get the electricity for free.
They actually do give the electricity for free, believe it or not. So our model,
tell me more about this.
It's a great thing. I'm surprised you haven't heard about it. No, essentially what happens is we're able to finance the solar array, sell the power to the utility on behalf of the customer. That gets a credit to the customer, which how the utility pays us is via credit. And then the customer pays us a discount to that credit. So all that being confusing enough, let me explain it in monetary value.
Thank you.
So you got a $100 utility bill this month. You subscribe to $100 of power credits from us, from the community solar facility. We charge you $90 for that $100 of credits. So effectively your utility bill just went from $100 to $90, and you don't invest in anything, you don't buy anything, you don't have a loan or a lease or any of that kind of fancy stuff. You just have a long-term subscription with us to save money.
Okay, so now I'm getting $100 worth of electricity for $90.
That's correct.
Okay, I just thought you said it was free.
It is. The subscription is free, so you get your 10% savings by not committing or paying any money. We're just giving you a specific discount to your utility bill, meaning you don't have any upfront investment to actually buy panels or anything like that to get the discount. Instead, it's zero cost to get in, and you just pay us 90% of what we give you.
All right, so my utility bill essentially goes down by 10%.
That's correct.
In that example. So it's a win-win-win for everybody.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so who's losing on this deal?
Well, that's where the one win isn't maybe, is certainly these programs are set up in that the utilities are buying clean energy out of these facilities.
Right.
So you could arguably, the utilities could certainly argue to say, are they paying the right price for that power? That's usually regulatorily administered and defined, which says yes, they're probably paying the right price. But certainly they would rather make more money off their customer than maybe what they're being able to give us for solar energy. But it's deemed to be the fair price of that type of energy in those areas.
All right, is this a net metering issue here in terms of?
It isn't net metering. So when we invented community solar, which we did 9 years ago, we were specific not to make it net metering, and instead it's an arrangement between us and the utility. The utility offtake the power, and that price for that power is set well below net metering prices, which is good because that's in the utility's best interest. It's in all the ratepayers' best interest, but still at an applicable level that allows it to be profitable for us as well as a savings for the consumer.
So you're getting from whatever energy company, whatever utility, you're getting, for example, you're obviously not getting retail. You're getting a price closer to wholesale, but it's actually works, the numbers work for you.
That's correct. And so when we started the business, the price was closer to retail. The longer the business has gone and the lower the cost of solar has become, it's trending closer and closer to wholesale. Certainly not to wholesale yet. Likely maybe never will get completely to wholesale, but is well below retail at this point and trending towards wholesale.
All right, great concept. Who doesn't like this?
Who doesn't like this? Rooftop solar companies don't especially like this.
Why not?
Because we're able to serve their same customer class at a much better price point without all the obligations that you have to put a solar system on your roof. At the same time, one of the reasons we're able to do that is because we're able to put in much larger solar facilities. So our average solar facility is 7 to 10 acres and a couple thousand solar panels. So we do that at a much better price point than a company that puts 20 solar panels on your roof.
Right. So you really can take advantage of economies of scale.
That's correct. We offer essentially large-scale economies to small individuals as well as big individuals. So we serve not only homeowners and residences, but we also serve commercial companies, governments, municipalities, you name it. So from single panel owners to thousands of panels.
So if I'm enrolled in your program, can I also put solar panels on my roof?
Yeah, it depends on the state in which you do it. Some states restrict that you can only do one or the other, but many of them allow you to do both as long as both of them don't add up to more energy than you consume, which is logical. They don't want you to have a surplus of energy.
Why not?
Because that surplus of energy is being offered at something higher than wholesale, it's a negative drag on the rest of the consumers if you're paying too much for effectively wholesale avoided power.
But what a great way to put energy into the grid.
It is, and that was my goal in creating community solar and community renewables, was really to create a vehicle that allowed everybody to be able to engage in clean energy if they wanted to make it financially beneficial for them, and to make it really simple. Meaning this is something where you can jump online and own community solar in 5 minutes while I'm in my pajamas sleeping, and it's that simple and that efficient.
That's great. I'm really fascinated. Okay, where are some of your projects around the country?
Sure. So we operate in 15 different states with 33 different utilities. We're born in Colorado. So 80% of Colorado's residents are served by the utilities that we partner with. Some of the other big states for us, our biggest state is actually Massachusetts, of all places. Massachusetts has high power prices as well as really good solar policies. So that's a good place to have community solar. New York is an up-and-comer as far as facilities for us. We're many others, Texas, Kansas, Minnesota, et cetera. So a lot of different states, kind of coast to coast, everything from Vermont to the state of Washington.
And I think one of the things a lot of people don't realize is that most states have, and actually all to some extent, have the potential for solar.
That's correct. I mean, if you take a state like Vermont or Massachusetts, not the sunniest places in the world, especially compared to a California or Colorado or Texas or Arizona. Yet it can be very beneficial to put solar in those states because they have high power prices, which somewhat offsets the lack of sun. And at the same time, many of those states have strong regulatory regimes that really want a lot of renewables so that they can get price stability longer term. So they're incenting renewables or having attractive policies for renewables, which makes it quite beneficial. I've been doing this for 9 years. The best state policy and most lucrative place to build community solar was Massachusetts, of all places, even though it has 30% less sun than some of the sunnier places in the United States.
Yeah, that's fascinating. All right, we're going to be back with Paul Spencer in just a moment.
For information on how to help promote civil and mutually respectful discourse and support expansion of the distribution of our programs, please email info@harbertv.com.
I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. You can follow the show on Twitter for instant notification of new episodes, live event invitations, outtakes, and behind-the-scene photos. And tweet us your topic and guest suggestions today.
The Rexall Broadcaster of the Year Award recognizes an individual who, through leadership, skill, and dedication, is advancing the broadcast industry in our state and our nation. Tonight, we honor Aaron Harber. Aaron has worked extensively in the media as a host, producer, political and economic commentator, and columnist. Today, the Aaron Harber Show is the focus of his media involvement. Aaron, it is a privilege to present you with the Rexall Broadcaster of the Year Award. Congratulations.
Just make journalism great again. I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. Find us on Facebook to get all the latest updates, see behind-the-scene photos, and make comments and ask me questions. You can see episodes before their TV broadcast, so like the show today.
The Aaron Harber Show may be viewed 24/7 at no charge from any location in the world at harbertv.com.
Welcome back to the show. I'm with Paul Spencer, and we're talking about community solar. So when you look at what's happening across the country, I mean, you work in multiple states, so you get to see all kinds of different regulatory environments. There's, of course, federal regulations as well. What could the government do from a federal level first, and then on a state-by-state basis or for different states, to promote greater use of solar energy?
Yeah, I think that that's fairly simple, and we don't really largely do this in America, and that is to essentially have policies that encourage renewables, whether it's solar or other types of renewable energy. And I think what we do have on the federal level right now is certainly tax credits that help stimulate the development of renewables, but that's really the only thing that's done on a federal level. So what you find is almost all other incentive programs are done on a state level program. So Colorado has incentives. Actually, for community solar, there's 17 different states that now have regulatory processes and regulatory rules to support community solar specifically. So what the government could do on a larger basis is say, why don't they set a renewable portfolio standard for the country, as opposed to, which is frequently referred to as RPS standards, as opposed to every state setting their own, and some states have 0 and other states have 100%. And then anywhere in between, they could set a national standard. In the same way, they could do other things that allow the installation of renewables to be cost effective. So for example, we spend a lot of money on permitting and things of that nature that is maybe a little bit more onerous than it needs to be for these types of solutions.
I've heard that refrain across a number of fields, by the way.
Yes, I mean, it certainly puts a lot of money into local coffers. At the same point, in certain jurisdictions, we have tax-free status on these properties where we don't pay long-term tax of ownership, whereas in other states, we have to work out tax agreements on a town-by-town basis where we literally pay hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxes on a yearly basis to local towns in order to have a solar field, or a solar facility that's serving their consumers. So there's many of those things that we could come out from a national policy perspective and make renewables much more attractive financially without really necessarily shelling out money, really just by streamlining the process.
So, and you mentioned states differ in their renewable goals. First of all, those goals you're talking about are in terms of electricity production, power production, and some states have no goals, and other states have goals of 100%. But no one has a goal of 100% for the immediate future that you're talking about in 10, 20, 30 years.
That's correct. All of them are, have a horizon that's amply put out there for the goal to be able to be met.
Do you think that a number of the horizons could be shortened?
I do. I mean, I think that you see, it's easy to look across the states and you can see which ones are taking more of an aggressive view towards horizons and which ones are maybe soft pedaling their way through it. And I think what you can see now at this point, renewable portfolio standards have been around for probably 15 to 20 years at this point, as far as the early ones.
Right.
And you can see how quickly states have been able to reach those. I mean, when they first came out, utility customers, consumers were mortified that this was going to be impossible to achieve these goals. And then, before you know it, you read about the local utilities meeting the goals 3 years early on a 5 or 6 year scale. So I think that we've been able to show that those things can happen pretty quickly and more quickly than many of the states are committing to, much less that many of the states aren't committing to anything, usually because there's other interests that are controlling or bridling their ability to put those types of rules into place.
And you're talking about political interest.
Political interest, and more so, there's a lot of interest within the energy space. Where they might not see that as advantageous. For example, if I owned a coal company, I might not want them to have renewable standards. If I owned the power company, depending if I was into owning renewables or not, I might be pro or con to that. So it's just those kind of third-party positions that end up mucking up the greater good.
How do you think electricity markets could become more consumer friendly?
Yeah, so I think how they can become more consumer friendly is, for one, to be able to give the consumer some choices. So we're seeing now readily, not only with residential consumers who are really speaking with their pocketbooks to go for renewables, but also more so with corporate America. Companies like Google and Amazon and Walmart and so forth, that are specifically going out and trying to secure renewable energy sources for their power bases. So I think if we had a system that really allowed the power providers, meaning energy companies, to be fairly compensated for providing what their customers want, customers could speak with their voice, and we'd have a lot more renewables more quickly. And the utilities would have a way to recoup the cost for those renewables. Whereas right now, utilities are a bit in a bind because they want to listen to their customer who wants more renewables, but they also are for-profit entities in most cases. So they can't just go out and switch over all their 50-year generation to renewables overnight because they have investment there. So there needs to be mechanisms in which they can recoup those investments to be able to support what not only their customers want, but certainly what I think the greater world wants as far as a cleaner environment at this point.
What would, do you think that the nation ultimately, as far as power generation, electricity generation is concerned, will it ever reach a 100% level in terms of electricity being provided by renewables?
I do think it will, but I do think it's going to take a substantial amount of time. Certainly there's a transition period. So obviously the detriment to renewables is that they aren't 24/7 power sources that you can turn on like a light switch and ramp up and ramp down and so forth. The things to solve that first in a transition phase is to have other power sources that do provide those types of attributes to be the yin to the yang of renewables when renewables can't produce, whether it be at night or not windy days, et cetera. And that's probably gas at this point as far as those off times. Longer term, I think that storage becomes that storage of renewables. First you take solar, storing up solar energy during the day so that it can be dispatched at night when there isn't any solar available, and now you have a complete solution.
And when you say storage, of course, you're talking about battery storage.
It could be batteries, it could be pumped hydro, it could be a variety of things. Certainly batteries are the most logical. And that particular paradigm has been shown to work on a smaller basis for a very long period of time. In fact, my first foray into energy was my wife and I built an off-grid home in the mountains of Colorado. And it has solar that charges up batteries during the day, and those batteries discharge overnight, and as a result, the power never goes out. Now, it's hard to scale that to the basis we would need for society as a greater good, but it's really come a long way very quickly, much as solar has come a long way.
How about in your case? I mean, where you have people in their homes, they don't have solar panels. If you were to have storage with your model, where would it be? Would it be on site where you are? Would it be in people's homes? Would you make arrangements with utility companies? How could you have a system? And if we go to complicated, if we go to a distributed system where more and more people are generating their own electricity out of their homes, what happens to your plan long term?
Yeah, so first I don't think
Sorry, I asked you like 6 questions at once.
Okay.
So.
I think we can handle that. So the first one would be, based on the current technology, I think the storage would be where our solar panels are located. So they'd be out in the field with the solar panels, because that's kind of your most efficient charging is right there next to the source.
And easy to meter and everything else.
Easy to maintain, all those good things. As far as consumers putting more solar at their residence, I think we'll actually see that ebb in the years to come.
Really?
Adoption is already starting to slow down quickly, and especially as there's the advent of other solutions like community solar that allow them to scratch the same itch but never have to worry about the solar panels, never have to take care of them, be able to do it at half the price, have a more advantageous outcome. I think that they'll still be just as happy to have solar and have it at half the price and never have to worry about it as they do today. And so I do think you'll have more of is maybe medium-scale distributed energy where you have megawatt, multi-megawatt facilities scattered around, much as we do today. We have 100 plus of those facilities. in and around the community as opposed to one on every house.
Fascinating. All right, we're going to take our last break and we'll be right back.
For information on how to help promote civil and mutually respectful discourse and support expansion of the distribution of our programs, please email info@harbertv.com.
I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. I very much would like to hear from you about the program, so please send me an email with your thoughts. You can suggest what topics I should cover, what guests I should invite to be on the show, or even what specific questions you would like me to ask. This is your program, so send your suggestions to aaron@harbertv.com. I promise to personally read every one, so email me today. And most of all, thanks for watching. I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. You can follow the show on Twitter for instant notification of new episodes, live event invitations, outtakes, and behind-the-scene photos. And tweet us your topic and guest suggestions today. I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. Find us on Facebook to get all the latest updates, see behind-the-scene photos, and make comments and ask me questions. You can see episodes before their TV broadcast, so like the show today.
Join me and watch The Aaron Harber Show.
Watch The Aaron Harber Show.
Watch The Aaron Harber Show.
Watch the Aaron Harper Show.
Watch The Aaron Harber Show.
I'm Reverend Jesse Jackson. Watch The Aaron Harber Show and Keep Hope Alive.
The Aaron Harber Show may be viewed 24/7 at no charge from any location in the world at harbertv.com.
Welcome back to the show. We're talking with Paul Spencer. So, given your model, what are some of the challenges that you face, and how do you grow a company like this? You've obviously already demonstrated the viability of the concept, so you're past that point. What's next?
Yeah, what's next is really just mainstay financiers coming into the business. So community solar is still relatively new, although there was a couple $1 billion of community solar installed last year. But it still hasn't attracted the large financiers. So that's really what we struggle most on, is just readily available capital to fund these types of solutions. They're great paybacks, they're secure paybacks. It's just really people becoming more comfortable and understanding it's a very big segment, much as was the case for rooftop solar, 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. Just no one big had stepped in yet, whereas today the big guys are there. They need to move on to community solar, and hopefully that's what we'll see in the years to come.
So are there concerns about, for example, what may happen with tax credits? Are there concerns about what kind of competition may occur? Talk a little bit about those challenges.
Yeah, there aren't really concerns about tax credits because there's a pretty good ramp down of tax credits, in the immediate term for the next couple of years. I think the entire industry understands that. Also understanding that the tax credit is a much smaller monetary piece of money these days. I mean, it used to be the tax credit was 30% on $3, and that was almost, 90 cents of tax credit. Today it's 30% on $1, so it's 30 cents. So it's 30 cents versus 90 cents. Still 30%, but not as significant from a monetary perspective.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't think there's a concern there. I think no really concerns from our side. We work well with utilities, which is some people's concern that utilities will go ahead and do renewables themselves. I think fantastic. We're there to support them, and we do that with utilities like Duke Energy today. They do community solar all based on our technology. Whereas other places we have state policies where we work in parallel with the utilities as opposed to hand in hand. So I don't see any of those as really big challenges in the near term. It's really just the scale of the financial markets.
So if I'm a consumer looking ahead, say 20 years, what is the power market going to look like for me as an individual?
Yeah, I think, my opinion is that you're going to have a really diverse bidirectional power market. And what I mean by that is you're going to have people who buy electricity and people who generate electricity on a daily, momentarily basis. And when I mean people, I mean really like me and you and companies and so forth. It's not just going to be the utility. I think what the utility ends up being is the orchestrator of all those things, as well as the underlying infrastructure to make sure that those electrons get from point A to point B. I think that's what I'm going to do for consumers, is that consumers will have a myriad of choices of how to how to purchase their power. At the same time, they'll have a lot of latitude to be in the power generation business if that's what they choose to do. Now, I wouldn't suggest that's going to be their primary income, but many people may have invested in, a micro hydro turbine because they have a little stream that runs next to their house or something of that nature, where it's a positive investment for them over time, and they're creating energy not just for them but for 10 neighbors as well, and it's all being orchestrated by the utility. So I think more and more inventions in clean energy will come online, and you'll have all these bidirectional pushing power and pulling power throughout the system.
All right, we've referenced utilities a lot. Haven't talked a lot about the future of utilities. Are utilities dinosaurs? What's going to happen to utilities if you have rooftop solar, if you have the kind of community solar operations that you're building, that you offer? There may be other on-site power generation opportunities for homes, for residences, certainly for commercial structures. As we move gradually to electric vehicles, are utilities on the way out?
Yeah, I think utilities are threatening extinction. And I don't think that they will become extinct, but I can say if they don't embrace change and embrace really catching up with the new innovations in the marketplaces, they will be extinct in a fairly short period of time. However, I think that they are starting to make progress. I think that progress will accelerate as soon as they get comfortable that it's okay not to have 50-year plans. Instead, you got to look at what's going to change in the next 10 years, and it might be drastic, and start embracing it. I think that they will come to that embracement point prior to going extinct, because certainly knowing that you may go extinct is a pretty good incentive to be able to change, right? So I do think that as a result, they'll become the conductors of the energy space as opposed to the singular providers of the energy space. Instead, they'll be more of a coordinator.
Right. I mean, because when you look at utilities make money a couple different ways. They make money, they build plants, they get a guaranteed return on their investment. So if they build a $2 billion plant and they're guaranteed a 10% return, they get $200 million a year from their ratepayers, from their customers, just to pay for that plant or to pay a return on that plant. They also, of course, sell energy, and they mark it up accordingly. So that's going to be, because obviously the plant side is certainly going to be phased out to a significant, not completely, but a significant extent.
Agreed, and I think what it gets replaced with is just a bunch of these smaller generation sources, whether they be on someone's roof, a 5-acre solar farm, wind generator, et cetera. So they'll have to get used to a lot more players producing power, but still it'll be the same paradigm. They're buying that power at one price, they're delivering it at another price, and they're providing the reliability behind it. And they probably have some of their own assets in there as well to plug the holes and to create the stability that's needed for the greater good. All
right, last question, jumping completely to the other side, and that is with nuclear power, where there's some perspectives that nuclear power is basically dead, it's too expensive, too many, the liability exposure is too great. Others saying, hey, this is great as far as greenhouse gases are concerned. Do you see nuclear in the future at all? I know we're running out of time, but.
Yeah, I don't. And the reason I don't is just that there's been enough meltdowns, quote unquote, in recent years that it's really thrown cold water on the nuclear downsides. I think also the fact that they are such very expensive investments for an extended period of time, not to say that they don't create a very low cost of power, because they do, but they're just really large commitments that in today's day and age, as rapidly as other technologies are changing and becoming cheaper and cheaper, it's hard to look at a 30, 40, 50-year horizon on a $10 billion commitment.
Right. All right, Paul, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You bet. That was Paul Spencer of the Clean Energy Collective. I'm Aaron Harber. Thanks for watching.
Please contact us. We want to hear from you. And thanks for watching.